Chapter 2: How to Catch a Thief. After many days, like a dog after a rain, the Lady Wilma shook winter from her masts and riggings. She entered the southern latitudes. The sun came out bright and fresh as if newly forged, and the nights were speckled over with stars. The fires went out in the pot-bellied stoves, and passengers began to shed their greatcoats and heavy woolens. In another week, they were down to their shirt sleeves. In the lower regions of the ship, Praiseworthy and Jack were still at their shovels. They were powdered over with coal dust, but Jack did not mind the work. It would toughen him for digging in the gold fields, he thought. Still, the roaring flames had lost their friendliness. The boiler room was becoming distinctly overheated. "Master Jack," said Praiseworthy, thinking of the tropic zones that lay ahead, "another week at our post and we shall be roasted alive." But the heat did not bother Jack, for every turn of the paddle wheels brought the far country a bit closer. Even though the sea route was the long way around, it was faster than the overland trail across the plains. The ox-drawn wagon trains were sometimes a year in reaching California, and Jack was in a hurry. Every day counted. It was fine with him that Captain Swain was making a race around the Horn. The captain was in a hurry too. Still, it would be months before the Lady Wilma dropped anchor in San Francisco Bay. There would hardly be time enough to complete the voyage, reach the mines, make a fortune, and return to Boston before Aunt Arabella had to sell everything. But try they must. "This infernal firebox," Praiseworthy said, wiping the sweat from his face. "We must think of a plan. We must expose the rogue who light-fingered our passage money." The truth of the matter was that neither Jack nor the butler had the slightest idea how to go about catching a thief. But Praiseworthy was undaunted. They would surely think of something. Meanwhile, they fed the flames, strengthened their backs, toughened their hands, and slept on a deck under the balmy sky. In their free time, they washed in buckets of seawater, and Jack began a letter home. He had no idea when or where he would mail it, but Praiseworthy had packed pen and paper, had no intention of allowing Jack to forget his duties. "But I would avoid any direct mention of our temporary misfortune," said the butler, with a wink. "No point in worrying your Aunt Arabella, even for a moment." Finding a shady spot under a lifeboat, Jack spread out his writing materials and began. "Dear Aunt Arabella, dear Constance, dear Sarah. By this time, you have found my note on the tea service and learned that Praiseworthy and I have joined the gold rush to California. I am writing this at sea. Please do not worry, as we are well and happy and getting plenty of good exercise. Our ship is the Lady Wilma, and we are racing the Sea Raven to San Francisco. But at the moment, we don't know whether we are ahead or behind, as our ships became separated in the bad weather. But now the sky is as blue as it can get. It's hard to remember that you are still having winter back in Boston. I go barefoot. Praiseworthy says we will soon be seeing the Southern Cross in the sky. I'm getting used to the food. We have salt beef and sea biscuits, which are very filling. For dessert, we have dandy funk, which is molasses pudding, or plum duff, which is just about what it sounds like. You would be very proud of me, Aunt Arabella, for as I eat everything. Praiseworthy wants to be sure to be remembered. We're partners. We intend to come sailing back to Boston in a year. We will be as rich as can be. The ship is very crowded. Everyone is anxious to get to California before the gold is gone. We see other ships on the sea almost every day. They're California bound. I think it's going to be very crowded in the gold fields. I'll tell you about some of our passengers. There's a horse doctor with a wooden leg. There's a judge with a scar over his eye. He rolls his own cigars and carries a sword cane. They say the mark over his eye is a dueling scar. We have several soldiers who fought in Mexico. They call themselves Mexico fighters and spend most of their time telling stories about the war. They are high-spirited and always laughing. I meant to mention that we have live animals aboard. They'll provide fresh meat during the voyage. We have crates of chickens, a sow, 3 pigs, 2 sheep, and 1 head of beef. I made friends with the smallest pig and named him Good Luck for good luck. Praiseworthy says pigs are very smart. It seems strange not to be in school, but I am learning things every day. I'll leave this letter unfinished and take up my pen again, as adventures befall us. The following day, toward dusk, Jack was washing up in a bucket of seawater when Praiseworthy was struck as if by lightning. "Master Jack," he exclaimed, "you have it." "Have what?" answered Jack, looking up. He had Good Luck with him in the boiler room, and now even the pig was covered with coal dust. "Why, the answer." "The answer? The answer to what?" Praiseworthy's eyebrows shot up with delight. We'll catch the thieving scoundrel at last. You've hit it, Master Jack. You have indeed. Jack couldn't think what he'd hid, but the next thing he knew, he was following Praiseworthy like a squirrel up one ladder and then another to the pilot house. Captain Swain turned and gave the two intruders a weather-beaten squint. His temper, if not the growl of his voice, had improved with the weather. "How's a blasted voyage agreeing with you, me hearties?" "No complaint, sir," said Praiseworthy. "What brings you above decks?" Praiseworthy answered, "You may recall that Master Jack and I suffered a slight misfortune. A slight misfortune at the very outset of this voyage. Some blasted, that is to say, some despicable thief, made off with our funds. Master Jack here has hit upon a scheme to expose the rascal." "Me?" said Jack. "Bah!" the captain interrupted. "I don't believe there's any such scamp aboard my ship. I asked the first mate to make a close examination of our passenger list. Gentlemen they are, most of them. The others are too crude for the clever art of the cut purse. "Nevertheless," said Praiseworthy, "I believe he's among your passengers like a fox among sheep. Allow us to prove it." Captain Swain scratched through his dark whiskers. "How do you figure on exposing him?" "We won't expose him, sir. He'll expose himself. If you will have all the passengers assembled in the main saloon after dark, we'll know very soon whether or not you have a clever thief aboard." "By grabs," said the captain thoughtfully, "it's worth a try."